The screen hums. There's this low electric thrum that vibrates through the quiet of a darkened room. You lean closer, controller clutched tight in your hands. Your heart beats a steady, anxious rhythm against your ribs. Outside, the world sleeps on, totally oblivious. But in here, in this space between you and the glowing pixels, something ancient is stirring. It's a feeling older than the circuits and code that bring it to life. It's the cold dread of a story told around a crackling fire. A whisper of what lurks just beyond the light's edge. This is where modern horror finds its power. It doesn't just create new monsters, it awakens the old ones. These games are more than just jump scares and gore. They are digital seances. They call upon the spirits of forgotten myths and whispered legends. They understand that the most potent fears are not invented, they are inherited, passed down through generations, encoded in our very DNA. The fear of the dark, the fear of being watched, the dread of losing control, of our minds turning against us. The gates of Mount Massive Asylum loom before you. Rain lashes down, each drop a cold tap against the lens of your camera. You are miles upshire, a journalist armed with nothing but a notepad and a night vision camcorder. Powerless, vulnerable. This is the core of Outlast. It strips you of all agency, of all ability to fight back. Your only options are to run, to hide, and to pray. The game understands a fundamental truth about fear. True terror is not about confronting the monster. It is about the horrifying certainty that you cannot. It is the primal fear of being prey. Inside, the air is thick with the stench of decay and madness. Every slam of a locker door, every creak of a floorboard sends a jolt of pure adrenaline through your system. The asylum is not just a building, it is a predator's den. The horrors of Mount Massive are not born from fantasy. They are rooted in the very real, very dark history of human experimentation and the myth of the monstrous other. The variants are the products of science twisted into a profane art form. They are what happens when humanity's quest for knowledge discards its morality. This is a fear grounded in reality, in the whispered stories of Cold War projects like MKUltra, where the human mind itself became a battlefield. Outlast takes this historical paranoia and gives it a grotesque physical form. The asylum's patients were once men, but they have been remade, reduced to objects of study and then discarded. This transformation creates the monstrous other, a being that was once like us but is now terrifyingly different. This is a myth as old as civilization itself. It is the story of the leper, the witch, the heretic. It is the fear of contagion, not just of the body, but of the soul. When you look at Chris Walker or Dr. Traeger, you are not just seeing a monster. You are seeing a twisted reflection of humanity. Their madness is a mirror showing what we could become if the thin veneer of society was stripped away. The Wall Rider, the asylum's spectral antagonist, elevates this concept to a supernatural level. It is a swarm of nanites, a being of pure science, yet it behaves like a classic poltergeist. It is a ghost in the machine, a technological demon. This brilliant fusion of science fiction and ancient folklore creates a unique and deeply unsettling terror. Supermassive Games acts as a digital curator of our collective fears. The Dark Pictures Anthology is a library of nightmares, with each entry pulling a different book from the shelf of human terror. These are not just ghost stories. They are interactive urban legends, playable folklore. The games understand that the most resonant horror stories are the ones that feel like they could be true. They are the tales you hear from a friend of a friend, the whispers about a haunted ship, a cursed town, a strange creature sighted in the desert. They tap into a shared cultural consciousness, a web of stories we all vaguely know. The curator, the game's enigmatic host, says it himself. He is a collector of stories. He guides us through these tales, which are presented as historical accounts, as things that happened. This framing device is crucial. It lends an air of authenticity to the horror, blurring the line between fiction and forgotten history. Whether it's the legend of the Orang Medan ghost ship or the Salem-inspired witch trials of New England, the games ground their terror in the soil of real-world myths and legends. Let's look closer at the anthology's tales. Man of Medan drops us onto the deck of the SS Orang Medan, a real-life ghost ship legend from the 1940s. The story goes that a vessel was found adrift in the Strait of Malacca, its entire crew dead, their faces frozen in expressions of sheer terror. This kernel of a real-world mystery is the seed from which the game's horror grows. The developers take this unsettling piece of maritime folklore and build an entire claustrophobic nightmare around it. The game then cleverly weaves in its own mythology, introducing the concept of Manchurian gold, a chemical weapon from World War II that causes terrifying hallucinations. This is where the genius lies. The game plays with your perception, making you question what is real and what is a chemically induced phantom. Little Hope takes a similar approach, but with a different set of legends. It transports us to a fog-shrouded, abandoned town that echoes the history of the Andover and Salem witch trials of the 17th century. The game taps into the deep-seated American Gothic tradition, a folklore rich with tales of religious paranoia, hidden sin, and generational curses. Now we journey to a darker, colder shore, Senua's Saga. Hellblade is not just a game, it is a vision quest, a harrowing pilgrimage into the depths of the human mind. It entwines two powerful forms of terror, the psychological horror of Psychosis and the primal dread of Norse mythology. You are Senua, a picked warrior traveling to the Norse underworld, Helheim, to reclaim the soul of her dead lover. But her journey is not just through a physical landscape of gods and monsters. It is a journey through the fractured landscape of her own psyche, a world distorted by voices, visions, and crippling fear. The game's developers, Ninja Theory, worked extensively with neuroscientists and people with lived experience of psychosis to portray Senua's condition with profound respect and honestly terrifying accuracy. The Furies, the chorus of voices that whisper, mock, and guide Senua throughout her quest, are a constant presence. They are your companions in this lonely world. Sometimes they warn you of danger, an enemy sneaking up from behind. Other times they sow seeds of doubt and despair, telling you that you are weak, that you will fail. They turn the simple act of walking forward into a monumental struggle. The Norse mythology in Hellblade is not just a backdrop. It is the very language through which Senua interprets her world and her trauma. The gods and monsters she faces, the fire giant Surta, the goddess of darkness Hela, are not just external foes. They are powerful metaphors for her inner demons. Surta's realm of fire and ash represents her consuming rage and grief. Hela's cold, desolate kingdom is the embodiment of her despair and loss. The mythology provides a structure, a set of ancient symbols for her to make sense of the chaos raging within her own mind. The world of Hellblade is a masterpiece of subjective reality. Everything you see, everything you hear, is filtered through Senua's perception. The environment itself is a puzzle box of her mind. Runes hidden in the landscape, perceived through trickery of perspective, become keys to unlock doors. These puzzles are not just clever mechanics. They are a representation of apophenia, the human tendency to see patterns in random information, a common experience in psychosis. The game forces you to see the world as Senua does, to find order in the chaos, to believe in a hidden logic that may or may not be there. The fear of the unknown is amplified to an almost unbearable degree. Is the monstrous figure shambling out of the mist a real Norse Draugr, or is it a hallucination born of trauma? The game never gives you a clear answer because for Senua there is no difference. The threat is real to her and therefore it is real to you. This uncertainty is the source of the game's most profound horror. It dismantles the player's trust in their own senses, plunging you into a state of constant doubt and anxiety. You are trapped in Senua's reality, and it is a terrifying place to be. The concept of permadeath, or rather the threat of it, is woven directly into the narrative. Across these disparate worlds, a corrupted asylum, a haunted ship, a mythological underworld, a common thread of fear connects them all. It is the thread of our most primal, timeless terrors. Look at Outlast. It is a pure distillation of the fear of being hunted, of powerlessness. Stripped of weapons, you are reduced to your most basic survival instincts. This taps into an evolutionary fear, the dread of being prey that is hardwired into our brains. The darkness is not just an absence of light. It is a suffocating presence. The domain of the predator, the realm of the unknown where anything could be lurking. The Dark Pictures Anthology, with its focus on folklore and urban legends, preys on our fear of the unknown and our fear of history repeating itself. Ghost stories and curses speak to a deep-seated anxiety that we are not fully in control of our world, that there are forces, supernatural or historical, that can reach out and claim us. Then there is Hellblade, which explores perhaps the most intimate fear of all, the fear of losing one's own mind. This is the horror of the unknown turning inward. These games are so effective because they understand that fear is a fundamental part of the human experience. Darkness, death, the unknown, and powerlessness are the four horsemen of our personal apocalypses. So what do we see when we stare into the flickering screen, our faces illuminated by these digital nightmares? We see more than just monsters and ghosts. We see reflections. We see the grotesque creations of science in Outlast and recognize our own fear of progress untethered from morality. We navigate the haunted histories of the Dark Pictures Anthology and see the skeletons of our own culture's legends and anxieties. We walk with Senua into the Norse underworld and confront the terrifying possibility of a mind at war with itself, a fear that is deeply, personally human. These games are not just entertainment. They are a modern continuation of humanity's oldest tradition, storytelling, as a means of confronting fear. They are interactive myths. By placing us directly into the narrative, they force us to do more than just listen to the story. They force us to live it. We become the journalist in the Asylum, the student on the ghost ship, the warrior in Helheim. Our choices have weight, our fears have consequences. The terror is immediate, visceral, and unforgettable because for a few hours it is ours. The developers of these games are the new mythmakers. They draw from the ancient wells of folklore, mythology, and history, understanding that these stories have survived for centuries for a reason. They resonate with something deep inside us. They are the language of fear itself. By translating these ancient terrors into the language of code and pixels, they ensure that these stories will continue to be told, continue to evolve, and continue to terrify a new generation. In the end, as you turn off the console and the room returns to silence, the echoes of the experience remain. The shadows in your home seem a little deeper. The creak of the floorboard sounds a little more deliberate. The game is over, but the fear it awakened lingers on, a quiet reminder of its power. For every horror story, whether it is whispered around a campfire or rendered in photorealistic graphics, is a mirror. It is a mirror of our oldest myths, our deepest anxieties, and our most enduring struggles. And in that reflection, we are reminded that fear is eternal.